Everybody, Andrew Cuneo here. I've been trying to delve a little bit into Standard, and I was looking at the deck lists from the Magic Online tournaments this weekend, and I saw this basic shell of a deck had top aided, and I wanted to give it a try. I have changed a couple of cards in it to kind of suit my preferences more. It had a bunch of, I guess, Jund cycling lands in it, and I put in 2 Cavern of Souls and a Restless Vents over those. It just seems like a good idea to me. If you're going to be playing with a 7-mana creature and Cavern of Souls is legal in the format, you probably want to play a few copies to make your 7-drop uncounterable, which it has become the case that there isn't a ton of counter magic being played that works on creatures just because of Cavern of Souls, but some decks do still play Make Disappear, and I don't think there's... I think this deck can afford to play Cavern of Souls, so there's not a reason not to do it. So I do have a kind of a mix of creatures. I've got Phyrexian Praetors and Elder Dinosaurs, so it's going to be a little bit situational what you want to pick. And then I don't know how I feel about this Restless Vents card. It's definitely not a strong creature land, but I think it's probably better than just planning to spend 3 mana and cycle. This deck it is possible to spend green mana in this deck to transform Etali, but that almost never matters. I mean, that's as close to never mattering as possible. The other thing I did is I trimmed 1 Brotherhood's End and 1 Burn Down the House for 2 Abrades. I do like the fact that this deck is playing a lot of these sweepers. They seem pretty good. At least the Magic Online metagame is a ton of like white mid-range decks that these sweepers perform pretty well against. I didn't want to have a couple of Abrades in my deck just because the Subterranean Schooner is probably the most successful card from the new set, and it certainly shows up a lot in the Magic Online deck lists. Outside of that, this is a kind of a callback to like a black-red ramp deck that was popular right when Etali came out, and it kind of fallen off. This sort of gets trumped by the like the 5-color ramp decks, I think, to an extent. But at least on Magic Online, those decks have, it looks like they've all been kind of forced out of the metagame by the white mid-range decks. Like the white mid-range decks figured out how to beat those decks, and there's such a big share of like the winner's metagame that those 5-color ramp decks can't really succeed anymore, which I think opens like a lane for a deck that is better against them, but is also playing some ramp stuff, and I'm hoping that's what this is going to be. Other thing that sold me on this deck was playing all of these Demolition Fields and Fields of Ruin. I always think it's fun when you run people out of basic lands and just start strip mining them. Looking at the sideboard, I made a couple more changes, in part because I just didn't really understand the way the sideboard was constructed. It had a bunch of these Graveyard Trespassers. I wasn't really sure what they were for beyond just like, this is always a card that it's never horrible if it's in your deck. So if you're worried you're going to have like a lot of stuff you want to board out and might not have enough stuff to bring in, you can always bring in Graveyard Trespasser. But I trimmed one of those for a 3rd Duress, mostly just to be better against control decks, control decks are not in a good spot, but this deck lines up pretty poorly against them if someone is playing one. I made room for the 4th Brotherhood's End, which had been in the main deck, but I trimmed it for an Abrade. There were 4 Lithomantic Barrages in the sideboard of this deck, which obviously it's a very good card against white midrange, but I feel like it serves the same role as a lot of the other cards that were already in this deck. I just didn't really see a scenario where I wanted so many of them, especially when you're playing black-red specifically. Cut down is better in a lot of instances than Lithomantic Barrage, just because it's an instant. Also, it can kill that deep Cavern Bat, which is one of the more popular cards. I guess Lithomantic Barrage can kill it as well, but not as an instant. So I trimmed 2 of the Lithomantic Barrages for the 4th Brotherhood's End and the cut down. Outside of that, it seems like the sideboard plan, if you do get paired against one of the ramp decks, is probably to board in Cruelty of Gix and Breach the Multiverse, and then have some Duresses and hope to win games like that. I think Archfiend of Dross is an interesting sideboard card. I haven't found any matchups where I really loved it, but I wanted to keep trying it. It was in the original deck list that I copied. Outside of that, well, I guess I've covered everything. So outside of that, there's nothing left. Anyway, I'm going to take this deck through one of the traditional standard events. I've been trying those again, and it seems like there's a decent level of competition in them, and there's at least, some level of prize support. So I'm going to give that a try. This is not enough lands. All right, this is, I guess, enough lands. It's kind of awkward, though. I don't want to keep 5 lands, 1 spell, but I'm now keeping 4 lands, 2 spells, neither of which I have enough mana to cast. This is a very mana-hungry deck. It has 27 lands in it, plus 3 mana rocks. And then it has 4 copies of, what's the name of the format? Big Score. To kind of loot away extra lands. Same thing with the Celestus. One thing I will say about this deck against these white mid-range decks is I think a lot of the cards line up quite well, but if you wind up playing against just a turn 3 wedding announcement, it can be kind of hard to beat. Sewer King. They worked over the Celestus, they countered it, and then they exiled it. Brutal. I'm assuming Sheoldred's going to die, and I'll probably burn down the house next turn. But let's see. Oh, it's a wedding announcement. Okay. Now we get to start checking them to see how many basic lands is coming. It's a little bit dangerous because if they have a plains in their deck, they can just play Virtue of Loyalty now. So maybe this wasn't a good idea. But I did cut them off of double white, so if they have the Wandering Emperor in their hand, they're not going to be able to cast it. A lot of announcing going on. So if I just play Chandra and plus it, it would die. The plan is to just big score now. Some life. And I'm going to anticipate that I'm going to want to burn down the house next turn, killing my own Sheoldred, which is not great. Okay. This is going to work out okay for me. Like, obviously, they're going to probably alpha now, and I'm going to trade the Sheoldred with whatever gets all the Rafine counters, or nothing's going to get the Rafine counters. All right. No, they must be planning to attack, yeah. They're going to get to draw 2 cards, which is a little bit awkward. Let's say that I don't burn down the house next turn. They're going to be going to 6. I guess they're also about to draw 2 more cards, so they're going to 4. I think I don't want to just trade my Sheoldred off. Because I can just kill them with this thing, right? Yeah. Well, that was easy enough. In a lot of ways, I feel like my deck is just kind of set up for this matchup already. I think I want another Brotherhood's End. Actually, I kind of like Duress in this matchup, too. Maybe is this where... Maybe I should be taking the Etalis out and trying the Archfiend of Drosses. And then this is what I meant when I was talking about the Lithomantic Barrage. Like, I just don't... I kind of feel like there's just other cards that are better. The Barrages would be good if I was paired against just straight-up white soldiers. Or white-blue soldiers, or like the white-red humans deck that just plays Midrange Recruiter. I like boarding in a little bit of Duresses because you can catch Wedding Announcement. They played Make Disappear in the first game. You can also catch the Subterranean Schooner. So there's some pretty nice targets for it. So my next turn's probably going to be Field of Ruin to get a mountain, and then untap, play this on Phyrexian. Because the Archfiend of Dross is a Phyrexian, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if it's a Praetor. This is optional, so I will not just allow them to draw another card. Then next turn, if I draw an untapped land, even if it's not a red land, I can Field of Ruin them. It gets double red in Brotherhood's End. Which is pretty nice. So now they are going to get a card off the Fairy Mastermind. I guess I could draw an instant speed removal here. I did not draw an instant speed removal. But it's not that big of a deal. I don't think I want to Field of Ruin them, because it would unlock them having a 2-mana counter. Just want the spell to resolve. I'll probably Field of Ruin them at the end of their turn. Although it's kind of past the point where the Field of Ruining really does all that much. So Wedding Announcement. This does allow them to play a card like Wandering Emperor, but I'm kind of okay if they play a Wandering Emperor, I would say. And they only have one basic in their deck, which that was worth learning. So I'm going to field run them again. They could have had make disappear there, but the only way I could have played around that was to not play my Chandra. I wasn't willing to do that. This again isn't doing a ton, but it is making it so that the next, if I draw another one, and next turn I'm probably going to get the double big score off of Chandra. So if I draw another one, then I will actually be able to knock them off of black mana, potentially. There's just a lot of announcing going on. I want to keep this Archfiend of Dross. Which is a Phyrexian. So I got that right. I guess I'm going to keep it and pitch the other big score.
Now or never.
I was just thinking, wow, I really didn't draw very good cards. I was going to get a Celestus flip to loot again, but I didn't even need it. Is this a good hand? Would not say it's a good hand, but it could be a good hand in some matchups. I have so few spells to choose from. Probably isn't a great reason to do this at sorcery speed. If they had like resolute reinforcements, it'd be really bad to have that flashed in response, but that's probably not a card that's in their deck. I think I'm going to wait and see if they play the blue-white dual land. If they had flashed in this knight in response, it wouldn't have stopped the Sheoldred's Edict because this is you're choosing either token or non-token. This is probably straight white-black. It's straight white-black. I think I want to save my Field of Ruin for their creature land. Or like a Mirex or something. No, it is blue. Okay. So if I do -2 and they have the Wandering Emperor, it's quite bad. If I do -3 and they have the Wandering Emperor, it's bad because then they just flash in and make a 2/2 and kill this. So I think I'm just going to get mana and not spend it. If I did +1 and they had the Wandering Emperor, it also would have died because they would have... No, it wouldn't have died. I guess I should have done +1. I'm really just hoping that it lives so I get the double breach next turn.
Back off, creep.
Seems like they have absolutely nothing going on.
We can do this together. You're about to do yourself.
Oh, come on. I still had so many more triggers to go. So this is probably about the same deck. They did have a basic island, so it's good I didn't feel to ruin them. So can I sideboard the same way I did last time? Do I remember what I did? Not exactly. I think I had like 2 Duresses in my deck. I think this is what I did. Which hand was better, my 6 land, 1 spell opening hand last game, or this hand? I think the 6 land hand might have been better. Gonna plan on Brotherhood's ending probably next turn. Don't want to let them take the Brotherhood's end. If I draw a land, I might just play the Sheoldred. This way, if they want to trigger the card draw off the wedding announcement, they have to jump attack or have a removal spell. Okay. They had a lot of stuff that was quite good there, but if they don't have a way to stop the Brotherhood's end, I'm still in okay shape. The wedding announcement flipping does make the cut down a lot worse. Still good enough to deal with this guy. Get down my game. I'm just going to do that while it still works. They spend their mana to animate this, I'm going to kill it. If they don't spend their mana to animate it, I'm not going to kill it. Please don't counter this. Alright, untap land. No. Starting to look a little grim. I'll play first. Let's go for it. This should be one of the games where I get to really hurt their mana development because of my Field of Ruin and Demolition Field. Because I guess I don't know for a fact this person only has one basic, but a lot of these Esper decks don't play a lot of basics. That much I do know. I'm probably going to flash out something. In theory, I could have waited to do that inside their draw step and give them an additional chance to draw like their 1 or 2 basics. Okay, they have a basic plains and a basic island. But it's not worth it because they can just float mana and like wind up with an extra mana if I do that. I think if they play, I was going to say, if they wind up casting Rafine there, I would have obviously gotten hit for 3. Then I think I would have just untapped, Demolition Fielded them, like the Shattered Sanctum, and then let the Rafine hit me. And tried to set up for burn down the house. Oh, well, I would have demo fielded them and then go for the Threaded or Abraded, the Fairy Mastermind. So I know that they can get an island here. I'm just going to go after the black mana. And I also know that they boarded in permission. So I'm not going to rely too heavily on this burn down the house resolving. Here I am going to go after their and land in their draw step. I didn't want to do it at the end of their turn because if they had a 4th mana, I would have let them activate the Fairy Mastermind, which didn't really want to let that happen. This doesn't seem that effective, given that I burned down the house in my hand, but maybe they figure they're just going to have to bait out the burn down the house anyway, and they're worried that they've run out of 4th lands. Well, I guess they have their 4th land now. Maybe not.
Years of training.
I might be using the Restless Vents attack loot mode pretty soon, because I am well supplied with lands, I would say. See if they flash out another Wandering Emperor. They have not. Get him, Restless Vents. I wouldn't be really sad if they had... I guess if they had a Fairy Mastermind, I would have cut it down, so I wouldn't have been that sad. My opponent just has a handful of black spells. So they could have Disdainful Stroke. I'm going to make this appear. I think I'm going to cast this first. And I believe Cut Down is my worst spell. Do you think my opponent's enjoying the fact that I demo fielded so many of their lands? Probably not. be very easy for them to have a Disdainful Stroke type card, so I don't really want to play big score into untapped mana. I'm kind of getting what I want just by hitting them with the Restless Vents. Archangel Elspeth. I'd be lying if I said I knew exactly what this card does.
You will shine bright, hero.
Hopefully they don't have Destroy Evil.
Ready arms!
Definitely not going to pay if they make disappear this. Maybe shouldn't have even cast it, to be honest. Yes, I'm gonna weaken this. Doing an odd amount of damage doesn't help me a ton because the way I'm gonna kill them is all even. So I might as well slow that thing down one more turn from ultimating. Come on, lands. Could it be that I'm gonna play against an Esper deck again? Maybe not. I'm not playing against an Esper deck. Playing against whatever this is. Guess I should have done this earlier, but I guess I don't want to let this hit me the first time because it does make all the proliferate stuff easier to kill me. Yeah, that was a mistake letting them get the first counter on me. This is definitely going to be a 3-1-1s and start attacking kind of game. Probably this is getting countered, but maybe subsequent copies won't. I'm only really plus, I guess I'm plus 2 poison from where I should be. What's this thing do? Admittedly hasn't been a particularly effective way of going about things. Six. Guess I need to try to kill this and hope it stays dead for a little bit. Proliferate. Brutal. I don't think I remembered that card existed. When it dies, proliferate. I needed an exile effect. I don't think I have any exile effects. I wonder if it would be better to replace these with Anoint the Affliction. Or Anoint with Affliction. Not for the, I mean, this matchup is, I wouldn't prepare my deck to play against this matchup, but just in general, I think I've got enough stuff that hits Planeswalkers with the Brotherhood's Ends and the Burn Down the Houses. And just having something that exiles, which doesn't matter a ton right now in Standard, but also something that can reliably hit the Subterranean Schooner. Don't think I want to Breach the Multiverse against this deck. I just want Archfiend of Dross again. I think the 1-for-1 removal is better than Brotherhood's End. Maybe I misunderstood their deck and didn't appreciate how many of these tiny proliferate guys they're going to have. It's possible. It's not an impressive hand. Board in more Brotherhood's Ends against More small guys. Maybe over Cruelty of Gix. Just have max removal. I guess this hits the 2/1 and the 1/1. Doesn't hit the 2/2. I think it's still probably better than Brotherhood's End, especially if I'm having 3/3s in my deck. This is the cost of playing with Cavern of Souls. That they would be lands that just produce black mana. Of course, this is also a matchup where Cavern of Souls is pretty good because you do have a lot of counters. Phyrexian. Graveyard Trespasser is some sort of human. Probably need to learn all of my creature types. I'm going to be playing with Cavern of Souls. Want a big score or just make 2 1/1s? I think I'm just gonna make 2 1/1s. I think I'll have another opportunity at some point down the road to big score in a spot where they're not gonna be able to counter it. I think that this is a land in their hand right now. It is. Ugh. Lame. It's got to be the best possible draw. It gets them the 2/1 back. Gives me a poison counter, and it gives them a pretty good card. Sorry. And then they can't counter Sheoldred because I put Cavern of Souls in my deck. Oh! Get him, Cavern of Souls. So this almost always means that they're playing like a 5-color kind of controlling ramp deck. Which I guess the Demo Field, Field of Ruin stuff isn't that good against them. Oh, that's probably one of their best cards against me. think I'm just... Should I just let this happen and just big score into Etali? I think the longer this goes on, the worse it gets for me. Like, even if I kill the Topiary Stomper here so they don't get to flip this, they're still just going to have 7 mana. So 8 mana for next turn. I think instead, I'm going to just hope with the Etali. Does mean they have 2 mana, but they probably aren't going to be able to do much with 2 mana. What they can do is play a Courier's Briefcase. Is there any chance that I want this Brotherhood's End? I mean, maybe. Seems unlikely I need this many lands. Guess I'll make this uncounterable. Do have access to, what, 1 mana right now? Come on, Beseech the Multiverse. Out of my deck, obviously. I hit a Sheoldred and an Invasion of Zendikar. Could have been worse, I suppose. Oh, they have Leyline Binding, I think. Is that why they keep getting priority? I think the way the battles work is if I damage it, I get to cast it. So I get it back. Seems very suspicious. Oh, that's a good reason to have kept my... When I flip it, it has indestructible and poisons them. It's no longer going to be in play though. Disappointing. Can I get back from that? Can I get back a Topiary Stomper right now? I'll put some more stuff as the game progresses. Ooh. Dealing more damage to them, although they are about to gain 3 life. Please no Atraxa. We can deal 6, 8. Put them to 2 if they have nothing from their next draw step. I think it's better to not use the Go for the Throat on pushing the Topiary Stomper through. Also, I'm not going to bother to kill this thing, I don't think. Flip this at this point. Doesn't seem to be what the game's going to be about. I think if they had Atraxa, they would have played it last turn. So I think I'm just going to kill this Angel of Wrath so they don't gain 3 more life. Now I can end of turn Sokenzan. Okay. It's going to put them to 2. And they are going to have 1 creature that can block. I can't Sokenzan. Just once the... what's it called? Once the Sheoldred's gone, I can't afford to do it. And I obviously don't want to do it with Sheoldred still in play because then my tokens would just get eaten. Okay. Oh, they're not still dead because they could briefcase to turn this into a creature. So I do need my Abrade. And I also might need the Sokenzan. Although the Sokenzan doesn't make it all that more likely that I'll kill them. Just because if they had an answer for the Restless Vents, they would just block one of the things and they would go to 1. Wow, I did not expect to win that game. It seemed like it was going so badly for me, but they just never had Atraxa, I guess. Alright, I want this. I want these. I think I want all of those. Don't want that. Don't want that. I think a little bit of Brotherhood's End kind of stuff is probably fine, but maybe 2 of those is good. I don't think I really want Virtue of Persistence. So do I want to play 2 Graveyard Trespassers? It's just like a random beatdown threat. And it is also another hit of Breach the Multiverse. I guess it's also kind of annoying for them to remove. I guess I'm playing more cards than this as well. Just play another one of those. Maybe one of these. I'm just going to play 2 Sheoldred's Edicts. I definitely do need to be able to kill Atraxa if they resolve it to have any hope of winning. This is a human werewolf. I'm learning my creature types as I go. I want to kill this? I don't think so. Time to die. Courier's briefcase. Is this a bluff, or did they have Etali's in their deck now? They might just be putting the fear into me. It's kind of annoying that I boarded in an actual target for Virtue of Persistence. Isn't good. This means they're gonna be able to just play Virtue of Persistence next turn. Start getting that Graveyard Trespasser back. Doesn't really matter that I'm cutting them off of colors here because they are going to get to flip this thing. I think this game is probably unwinnable. Maybe if I top deck my other Graveyard Trespasser so I can get the graveyards empty. Guess I'm going to protect the Celestus rather than try to pinch them on mana. I wonder why they named Phyrexian and not Angel there. I think the answer is we may never know. I guess I could have conceivably let that resolve. And then I can play the Chandra in minus, but I think I'd rather just play the Chandra in plus.
You have no idea who you're messing with. Got a feeling this'll work.
They have an island, so if they hit Leyline Binding, they can actually cast it, which is obnoxious. That's actually a pretty bad hit for them. Well, no, it's not that bad. They just didn't hit Leyline Binding or up the Beanstalk. They just whiffed on enchantment, but they hit quite a lot. Is it possible I'm not going to want to cast that? I guess it is possible. Start out by big scoring. I don't think that gaining a bunch of life is going to be how I win this game.
Here's a spark of hope.
Need to find a Breach, or I guess a Cruelty of Gix is also pretty good now.
I'm ending this fight.
Now this was a whiff. Actually get more damage out of Sheoldred even.
Come on, Chandra. Think on your feet.
That wasn't so good.
You're about
Oh, I could have killed them. I'm bad at math. Very bad at math. Or I just didn't do any math. They're probably not in good shape anyway. But I had enough that if I hadn't plussed, I could have minus 8'd and just 8'd them to the face. I had 10 damage just in play. Well, 10 damage between the Burn the House and the Sheoldred. Let's save them. I also obviously had them dead with a minus from Chandra. But we'll let the devils do the work. Final match. Probably the same matchup. It's pretty important for me to draw the Celestus and big score in this matchup, or the Irencrag as well. My cards get pretty badly outclassed if I don't get to ramp. think I'm just going to big score. Probably pitch the Virtue of Persistence, which it's not a complete blank in this matchup. But I don't think that the way that I win is really by, like, getting to an attrition state and then resolving Virtue of Persistence. I think I need to actually just get ahead of them. Kind of win before they can deploy their hand. So I think they have a better late game than I do. I think that I'm gonna try to bait out a Leyline Binding here. Also, by playing 2 spells, I'm flipping the Celestus. So I don't really want to play my Chandra and just have it immediately eat a Leyline Binding. Not in the market for flipping the Irencrag. Ooh. Didn't immediately eat a Leyline Binding, meaning they're either planning on playing Sunfall or they don't have a Leyline Binding. Planning on playing Depopulate. Okay. I'm 3 mana off from being able to go Chandra plus Breach the Multiverse.
A bad time to improvise.
Do this now so they can't respond in some way that is not to my liking. Hopefully if I double Breach next turn, it's going to be good enough to win. I'm in danger of decking first. I obviously could kill this with Abrade or Sheoldred's Edict, but I don't think I need to. I think we're going to wait and see what I hit. Off of the Breach. I guess now I am relying on actually hitting creatures in from their graveyard, because they don't have anything for me to get yet. But I don't know that I'm going to miss a 3/4 lifelink angel. I got one anyway. Now probably is actually time to flip the Irencrag into battle mode. I think I'll pass on casting that Sunfall. It's all the same to you, opponent. Killed myself. How did I lose track of there was a Breach of the Multiverse being on the stack? Alright, not great. I think that's how I was sideboarding, but I think that I decided Sheoldred's Edict. Actually, I decided I'd like to burn down the house a little bit. All right. So I need to mentally recover from that last game. That wasn't so good to just kill myself on turn 6. I'm going to give him one more draw step. I'm going to fire this off next turn just so I can hit up the beanstalk. Are you going to duress me first? Oh, preemptive duress. Wasn't expecting that from their deck. Especially, like, how many untapped black sources do they have? Probably not that many. I mean, that duress is still a fine card in their deck. Just their deck is not very capable of turn 1 duressing, I would guess. Weird. Did they port into a different deck? I kind of want to just ignore the Mirex. I guess if I'm ignoring the Mirex and going after that, they're still getting green mana, which is the main reason to ignore the Mirex. So, do they have a basic forest in their deck? Maybe not. They do. Man, they're really getting to take advantage of that spelunking, making their land be untapped value. Chapter 1. Pretty awesome hit. This has worked out okay. I want... all this stuff. I'll take 6 cards, please.
I will burn Phyrexia to ash. Come on, Chandra. Think on your feet.
Oh, they don't even have double white to play the depopulate. Oh, now they do. Okay. They didn't do it. I kind of feel like I want to double Duress them and just hit the unknown card rather than getting 3 extra 1/1s. I don't think the 3 extra 1/1s are going to matter. It was 100% worth it to double Duress. Oh, did they? I think they got screwed by the auto tapper is what happened there. I think they wanted to tap the Cavern of Souls and they got auto tapped. Should I mull and just hope to hit a ramping thing? I guess. Is this better? Not really. Guess it's a little better. Still no ramp though. There's some ramp. Want to Field of Ruin them? I don't think so, because it would have to be Field of Ruining this land, and they could just go and get a swamp if they wanted to. I think we're going to pass on that exciting opportunity. The problem with playing big score there is that the main reason to do it is to set up to play the Breach the Multiverse, but like just jamming it right there doesn't really help me because the just wind up Disdainful Stroke in the beach probably. Why did they do that in their upkeep? We'll never know. It did go kind of badly for me though. That much I will say for sure. Alright, I'm kind of priced into now just jamming the Breach. I was hoping to draw a Duress and like a land, so next time I could go Duress Breach, but this 6/6 is an artifact, so can't even kill it. I would assume that I'm going to die here because they're going to Disdainful Stroke. Alright. Well, good games. I punted that first game real bad. Alright, so I went 4-1, which is means I came out a little bit ahead. For people who don't know, that you can win these play-in points if you go 5-0. And if you get to 20 of them, you can use them to play in qualifier play-ins. Which, if you actually get to the point where you're spending 20 of them on a qualifier play-in, like, that's kind of nice, but they're completely useless otherwise, which is why these events are not particularly popular. Anyway, that was fun. The one thing I would say, having played... Let me open the deck up. Having played through one event with this deck now, I was kind of underwhelmed by the whole Field of Ruin and Demolition Field thing. There was one game where I was able to use Cavern of Souls to play a Sheoldred. It was against that weird blue-black deck, but I do think that Cavern of Souls, when you have really high-impact creatures, is kind of nice as like a 2-of. I was disappointed in these because they weren't good against the 5-color ramp decks. And I think I got one of the Esper decks, I got pretty good with them. But like we saw when I played against the other person, they had... If they have like 2 basics in their deck, it gets a lot worse. And they are kind of awkward early on in your opening hand. I do think you want some of these just because people do play with creature lands. But I could easily see cutting down to like only 3 or 4 of these. I think Sheoldred's Edict probably would be better as a different 2-mana removal spell. Maybe Anoint the Affliction. Or it could just be, they could just be cut downs in the main deck. That also I think would be perfectly reasonable. I like the expensive stuff other than that. Not really sure about the whole Archfiend of Dross and Graveyard Trespassers in the sideboard. I didn't really feel like there was any matchup where I was like, yes, I have these cards in my sideboard. They're going to be great. They were just kind of cards I could board in that would be fine. Which sometimes that's what you want in the sideboard, but I don't know if that's what I want in this sideboard. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.